my name's Annette and you may know me as Nettersplays. And today I'm going to go over my favorite games of 2018. Now, games that came out last year, there was quite a few. There was well over 2,000 games, and of course I didn't manage to play them all. In fact, I only got to play a small percentage of the games that were released. So this list is only going to be based on the games that I did manage to play that were released last year. Games like Blackout Hong Kong or even Chronicles of Crime will not be on this list because I didn't manage to play them. However, I'm pretty sure they might have made it onto my top 10 list. There were also games that I did really enjoy, however, I just felt like they couldn't be on the list of my top 10 favorite games, but I did want to leave an honorable mention. And you can more or less think about these as my number 11. So let me go ahead and briefly go through these games and just show you which games I really enjoyed but just didn't quite make the cut. Okay. So here are my honorable mentions for 2018, and that is Smartphone, Pete Mott's, The Estates, Crusaders Thy Will Be Done, Railroad Inc., Azul Stained Glass, Hardback, Gizmos, and Welcome To. So now that we got the honorable mentions out of the way, let's get into the meat of the video, which is the top 10 games. And we'll start off with number 10, of course, and that is 1906 San Francisco. So this game took me by surprise because I heard nothing about this game prior to Essen. Now, Essen is a board gaming convention that happens once a year out in Germany, and a ton of games are released there from all over the world. And this was one that kind of piqued my interest because it's about San Francisco and the Great Quake. Now, when I picked it up, I was a little surprised because it was in a small box. I expected this pretty big box for what it was. Also, the theme about it was just that you're picking up all this rubble from the city, you're doing area control because you're trying to collect permits to build into these new areas, and you're also just producing money and you're doing some set collection with turn order. There's a lot of game mechanisms involved in this game. And then, before you know it, it's done within an hour. So, it's the perfect filler. In fact, this is probably my number one filler of the whole year because it has so much going on, and when you're done you're pretty much satisfied. You felt like you played one of those big heavy Euro games and it was done in an hour. So I really enjoyed it and I highly recommend it, and that is 1906 San Francisco. So my number 9 game of the year is Symphony No.9. And I didn't plan that out, it just happened to be my number 9 game. And so this game is about the age of music, which during the 18th century, all these great composers existed around the same time, like Mozart and Beethoven. And so in this game, it takes on you as a patron, kind of hiring these composers, and you're trying to make them reputable in this music scene. So you're kind of making these auctions and bids, and you're kind of trying to boost up their reputation in order to present at the end of the round a great concert, a royal concert to the public and to royalty. And then you're gathering points along the way. I mean, this game is pretty much an economic and bidding type of game. It was very well balanced between the theme and the mechanisms, and it kind of worked really well together. And this is what I really enjoy out of games, when the theme and what you're doing in the game kind of coexist with each other. So definitely number 9 is Symphony No.9. My number 8 game of the year was Catch the Moon. Now, this is a game that really surprised me for being on this list because it's a dexterity game. And all you're doing is you're stacking ladders upon ladders and you're rolling the die to see how you're going to stack a ladder. And that's it. There's not much to it. And these other games I have on my list are really like heavy strategy or have like a lot of mechanisms on it. And then again, I have Catch the Moon as my number 8 because it's just so much fun. It's easy to introduce. Everyone that I've played it with has enjoyed it. It has great table presence. So whenever you're playing this game, people are usually surrounding the table and kind of looking at what you're doing. It's just a lot of fun. And this is actually probably my favorite family weight game of the year because, I mean, I played it during Christmas and even Thanksgiving, and everyone loves this game so much that they always have a blast. And it's just casually on the table sometimes whenever I have a game night, it's just always around and people are always having a good time with it. So that's why Catch the Moon is my number 8 game of the year. So let's get back to strategy-based games with my number 7 game of the year, and that is Newton. Now, this game right here is a game that I really enjoyed, so much so that the first time I played it, after that game, I immediately set it up to play again. Now, this doesn't happen too often where I just immediately want to play a game all over again, even though it took over an hour to play. It has everything going on in it in the sense that it has a map that you're traveling around in. It has these technology tracks in which you're trying to build up and gather these different types of resources. You have this other kind of grid system that you're trying to fulfill by completing these like books that you're trying to collect, and it's filling up your library. And all you're trying to do during this game is just get as many points as possible. And you do so by playing out 6 rounds, and each round you're going to play out 5 cards. Now these cards, when you play them out, you play them face up, and then at the end of the round, one of those cards is going to go underneath the board, and the bonus on the bottom will just carry through for the rest of the game. So it's an engine builder. And that is exactly what I like about these big, heavier games, in the sense that you're kind of building up this big like presentation of resources and points. And it was just such a satisfying game that I really enjoyed Newton. And I highly recommend it if you're into strategy games like that. Like, you should definitely check out Newton. So moving down the line, let's go over my number 6 game of the year, and that is Carpe Diem. Now, this is designed by my favorite designer, Stefan Feld, and in this game, I feel like he's going back to his roots of design. He's making something simple like tile laying, and he's making it his own. Now, the way you collect a tile in this game is unique and different because you have this circular area where you're moving this figure between different areas to collect a tile. Once you collect the tile, you can place it onto your grid. You're going to collect different resources by placing it in different locations, matching different things that are already placed, along with scoring points at the end of the game. All these resources and things you're collecting throughout the round, you're also going to place them towards an achievement goal that is going to be measured or going to be achieved at the end of the round. So you're taking a tile, you're placing it down, you're collecting stuff, and you're going to achieve stuff at the end of the round. Everything kind of works with one another in a really smooth and just kind of nice feeling way. I really enjoy playing this game. It's not too hard to introduce, and it's not too heavy. It's a pretty casual type of game. So that's why I picked Carpe Diem as my number 6 game. So we're halfway through this video, and the number 5 game is Gugong. Now, Gugong I managed to pick up and play at BGG-Con, which happened in November, and the cool thing about this game is that it's an elaborate big board game, and it's a worker placement, but the thing is that you don't have little figures that you're placing out here and there to do actions. You have a hand of cards, and you have this hand, and you're going to use those as your workers. Now, you want to go to different areas on the board and do different actions, but it's all based off of the criteria of what you have in hand and what card you're going to play in that certain space. Now, the criteria you're trying to match is that the card in hand has to be higher value than the card that's placed in that worker area, in that one location. And to do that action, you want to also synergize with the location, and if it has a bonus, you also want to do the bonus too. So sometimes you're kind of holding on to your hand because cards are being exchanged. People are picking up, people are laying down cards, maybe values are going up and down, and you know what people are picking up, so you might want to wait for them to kind of place down a card later on in the round. There's a lot going on with the exchange of what's going on in your hand to what's going on on the board. And that's what I really enjoyed about this game. It's a worker placement where there's a lot of synergy between the cards in hand and what's going on the board. And that's why I really enjoyed this game, because of the interaction and the gameplay with the cards and the players too. So that is my number 5 game of the year, and that is Gugong. So my number 4 game of the year is Underwater Cities. Now, I got this game towards the end of the year, and I managed to play a few quick games of it, and it kept on climbing up my list until it eventually kind of stopped at number 4. But I've been really enjoying Underwater Cities. Just like Gugong, this game is a board game where it's a worker placement. You're doing different actions on the board, and the way you do the action is by playing a card from your hand onto the board. So it's kind of like Gugong in that sense. But the thing that you're also trying to do is synergize with what's in your hand and where you're placing it on the board. So these cards have 3 different colors, and if you match the color of placement with the board, then you go ahead and synergize. You get to do extra stuff. And so that's what I really like out of this game. It's just kind of like the combo effects of placement. What you're doing in this game is also very unique and different, and you're trying to build an underwater city. So you're trying to collect all these resources, and you're trying to build the city on your own player board. So it's not very competitive with other players where you're building in the same space, but you're doing your own thing. Where it becomes interactive is the locations on the board. You can only collect certain resources at certain areas. So that becomes very competitive too. This game at 2 players is great. I've really been enjoying it at 2 players, and I feel like it's not very long. Now, the game says it's 40 minutes per player, and I think with a 2-player game, I've played it within an hour and a half, and that's fine by me. I don't have a problem playing an hour and a half game with 2 players. It gives me that sense of satisfaction, because after you're doing all this gameplay of gathering resources and building a city, you have something nice to look at the end. And so you feel like you've completed something, and you've actually made an underwater city. And that's why I really enjoy this game too. So my number 4 game of the year is Underwater Cities. So my 3rd favorite game of the year is Castell. Now, this game holds a very, very dear place in my heart because I know the designer, and I've been playtesting this game with them for a while now. And I loved it at the first time I even playtested it. I knew this was a game that was going to be really well received. It was really well thought out, and I'm just so proud that it finally made it through production and it turned out great. Now, this game right here is a game where it's a very unique theme as well. And the thing about it is that in Catalonia, they have these festivals where people in different districts or neighborhoods or areas in Catalonia are coming together, and they're performing this great event where they're competing in building these human towers, and they're built out of people from the community. And so the cool thing is that it ranges in all different ages. It's all about unity, it's all about diversity, and it's all to perform together. And so the atmosphere and the theme of the game is just different. It's unique. It's something I really love about this game. So what are you doing in this game? This game, you're have this huge board. You're going ahead and you're competing at different festivals. I believe there's 12 different festivals throughout the year, and you are competing and you're recruiting different people along the way. And what you're doing is you're going on this map and you're moving around and you're gathering these people to compete with you. And by that, I mean you're collecting different tiles. Because at the end of the round, you have these festivals that you're going to, and you'll be comparing between your pyramid and someone else's pyramid, another player's pyramid, and you're building these tile towers of people, and you're kind of seeing who can build better and who can gain the most points and who can gather the prizes too. Along the way, you're building different skills, and so you become more versatile with the way you build your towers too. So there's a lot going on in this game. I really love the theme of it. I love how it's played. I love the competition too, and the display of tiles. It's really unique and different, and I highly recommend Castell because it's my number 3 game of the year. So we're nearing the end of the video, and this part was the hardest part out of everything. When I was compiling the list, I came up to these next 2 games, and it was so hard to figure out which one was better than the other one. In my opinion, they're both equally the best games of the year. But because I was looking into the pros and the cons of each one, whether I like it for so reason or whatever, I think I made the right choice, and I picked my number 2 game as Teotihuacan. Now, Teotihuacan is a game that I've been interested in for the longest time. This is a worker placement game that is a grandiose game. The board is huge, and what you're doing is you're going from one location to another in a rondel kind of fashion where you're moving clockwise, and you're going from one place to another to do an action like gathering stone or gathering wood. You're gathering resources, or you can exchange them in to build towards this pyramid. In fact, in this game, you're building a huge pyramid as a group. Everyone is kind of competing to get the resources, competing to build towards the pyramid, and they're competing for points. But in the end, what I really enjoyed about this game is the fact that we can all sit back and look at what we accomplished. We actually made a pyramid, and we have something to look at, and it's so cool. It kind of gives that kind of satisfying feeling that you all worked towards something together and played this really well-made game. There's a lot of cool things about this game that is unlike any other one with timing. Timing in games is what I really love. This does it so well. Just like Solkin, in a way where the grids are actually moving, the locations are moving. This one is like you're physically moving your own worker around, and just the way you can place your workers kind of makes it less beneficial for other players at certain times. So you kind of have a weighing in of like, well, do I need to do this now? Or maybe I'll do this other thing to kind of make it harder for someone else. So you always have those decisions to make every turn. And that's what I really like about this game. It's one of the great games of the year. I highly recommend it if you're into heavy strategy, if you're into games that kind of offer tough decisions throughout the game, and that you are building towards this great pyramid of these huge tiles, chunky tiles, and you have something that you all build together. And so definitely highly recommend Teotihuacan, and it is my number 2 game of the year. So my number 1 game that I played last year was Coimbra. Now, Coimbra is a game that was right there with Teotihuacan, and Coimbra was a game that I didn't expect to like it so much. And the reason is because I thought it was just a medium weight game. It was just something very simple or whatever. But this game, wow, this game really surprised me. The way that you play this game is that at the beginning you roll these dice, and everyone's going to be picking. You're going to be drafting a die at a time. So on your turn, you pick a die, another player does, and such. So when you get these dice, though, you could do different things with them. They're all different colors, they're all different values, and the next couple of turns that you're going to make during that round is going to be based on the colors you picked at the beginning, along with the value, the number that you picked at the beginning. So there's a lot going on in that initial selection part of the game. What you're doing is you're placing these different dice, once you gather them, onto different locations to pick cards that are all randomized. And so every game is different because of the placement of the cards, the roll of the dice, and then once you collect these cards, you can build them towards achievements that you can gain points at the end of the game, throughout the game, or immediate actions or benefits that you get. And so you're collecting, doing a set collection, you're doing these action benefits, and then afterwards you're looking at the color of the die too, that you placed, because the color is going to move you up these tracks, and you're all competing up these tracks to gain points towards the end of the game. And the tracks will also give you special benefits throughout the game. So everything just works perfectly in line with one another. And that's what I love about some of these board games that designers create, is just the way that everything is interconnected between phases and rounds. And in the end, you're kind of building a huge engine. Towards the end of the game, you have this massive thing that you can unload, and you can do these different actions. They'll be super beneficial because you've been working on this track. And so it leads to a huge variety from game to game, from round to round, all based on these rolls of the dice. So definitely Coimbra has to be my favorite game of the year. I highly recommend it for not just the heavy strategic person, but also someone that's just trying to get into the game. It's something beautiful to look at. The bright colors, the beautiful artwork components, everything is just perfect in this game. It is a game that I think will just carry on and become better and better, especially if they're planning to make expansions for it. Oh man, I would eat that up right away. But definitely Coimbra has to be my #1 game of the year. Well, thanks so much for joining me in my favorite 2018 games of the year. And also leave a comment below with some of your favorite games of the year, along with any recommendations of any games that I didn't have on this list. So thank you so much. I'll see you later and have a good day. Bye.